Welcome back to Fossil versus Future. I'm Daisy.
I'm James.
And today we're going to talk about
AI.
What about AI? Artificial intelligence, or AI, is a broad term for technologies that simulate human learning, reasoning, problem-solving, decision-making, creativity, and autonomy. While there is no universally accepted definition, AI can be viewed as a progression of nested concepts that have emerged over more than 70 years. A major subset of AI is machine learning. Machine learning gives computers the ability to learn without explicitly being programmed. Unlike traditional programming, where detailed instructions are manually coded, machine learning involves creating models by training an algorithm to make predictions or decisions based on data. The more data a machine learning model is trained on, the better its performance. Over time, human programmers can also refine a model to help push it towards more accurate results. There are many types of machine learning techniques or algorithms. One of the most popular types is called a neural network and is inspired by the structure of the human brain. A neural network consists of interconnected layers of nodes, or neurons, that work together to process and analyze complex data. Deep learning is a subset of machine learning that uses neural networks with many layers. While traditional machine learning often relies on supervised learning, where algorithms are trained on labeled data, the multiple layers of deep learning models enable unsupervised learning, extracting patterns from large amounts of unlabeled data with minimal human intervention. A rapidly advancing branch of deep learning is generative AI, or Gen AI, which can create complex original contents such as text, images, video, audio, or more, in response to user prompts. The technology powers tools like ChatGPT, which uses large language models, LLMs, trained on massive amounts of text data. Training these modules demands immense computing power, leading to concerns about their economic and environmental impacts. The rapid evolution of AI also brings ethical challenges, including privacy risks, algorithmic bias, and potential job displacement. A lot of terms. I was really trying to get my head around all those different terms and concepts ahead of this episode, but I think we use a lot of them synonymously.
And then they have quite important differences.
Mm-hmm.
And they are affecting our lives enormously already, and we're just beginning. And it's a classic example of an accelerating space for innovation that's, the exponential is fully engaged, and a huge competitive geopolitical competition over who's going to dominate the AI world and use AI for whatever purpose. And of course, we'll have to talk about the fact that this is a very powerful tool that could be used for good or ill.
Mm-hmm.
It's also in that geopolitical competition favoring those who are already have significant economic and political power. So there is a digital divide amplified, and one that already exists, just made more so. The power of this technology is phenomenal. And, we're already absorbing it into our lives in ways that we probably don't fully acknowledge, because it could be quite trivial. I mean, I listen to the AI DJ on Spotify on the way.
Yeah, what are you going to watch on Netflix?
It's a small thing, but you just to say, well, that's cool. But it's an example of a series of small changes that are actually adding up to something pretty profound. And here we are having this conversation whilst heads of state and government have been meeting in Paris to figure out what they should do, and who got invited and who didn't was significant, but there was a real challenge underway to figure out how best to use this technology for what purpose, for example. And one of the subjects that they have been talking about is climate change and energy, how to use AI to deliver public goods, how to use AI to solve really complex problems that affect society, so that this power can be harnessed and channeled and directed towards fixing things for humans to flourish. And at the same time, real concern that humans may not flourish if this technology is not wisely used. And at a time when there is a resistance to multilateral cooperation that we've talked about in the context of climate change. So one senses real national competition driving these conversations rather than what will be a necessary international cooperation to manage the consequences of the use of this technology.
Yeah, and I was just saying to you earlier, the stat that really stuck out to me when I was watching clips from the AI Action Summit yesterday is that only 67% of individuals in the world access the internet. And that drops to 37% in Africa. So what you were saying about the digital divide is real. These models are being trained on existing internet data that doesn't include everyone.
No.
They're invisible to these models, a lot of the world.
It's an irony, slightly bitter one, that a lot of the manual work that does the inputting of data into some of these models is done by people in Nairobi, in pretty impoverished circumstances. There's a huge amount of grunt work, poorly paid, to feed these systems with data before the algorithms get going on them. I mean, it's just bulk data processing. Madhumita Murgia from the FT wrote a book called Code Dependent, which opens up this whole life behind the scenes that you don't really see of digital workers who feed material in. And of course, once it's in, yes, the algorithms get to work, but what mistakes, biases, what happens to in that initial formation of data, if you don't really know where it comes from, you're having to trust an awful lot of actions around the world from people running through very laborious processes before the code gets going to turn it to use for someone else somewhere else. It's a remarkable whole new system that I'm afraid most people aren't following and are going to have to adapt to.
Yeah, there are a lot of unknowns with AI, which I think, well, with the environmental impact as well, it really is a double-edged sword because we have these huge data centers that require massive
Staggering
amounts of energy, which is increasing significantly as our
It's amazing. Michael Liebreich, who we talked about before, who does the Cleaning Up podcast, he wrote a really, really good piece at the end of last year on this topic of energy demands for AI. And he went and visited one of these big centers. And he's quite well informed about these matters anyway, but I think he was stunned at the size, sophistication, that these places are phenomenal knowledge building factories with the amount of hardware in there that needs enormous amounts of power. And solving that problem has climate change implications. What sort of power do you use? How does it need, what sort of power fits that demand? And it creates some real competition between the types of generation that we have. Can you do it with a combination of renewables and batteries? What about small nuclear? A lot of talk about SMR reactors being used specifically for data centers, or gas turbines, or repurposing coal-fired power stations. I mean, we could go that way too.
Which has been happening. There have been delays to shutdowns of coal power stations to keep these data centers running.
Depending on where they are in the world, So, and then there's the cooling that's required because they get really hot.
Loads of water.
Lots of water. Mm-hmm. Hence the locational decisions, putting these centres in places where there's access to water, or where they can be put in, for example, in Norway, in caves where they're under in rock to keep them cool, or in Iceland where there's geothermal available in a very reliable way, and then it's a question of getting the cables to connect Iceland to wherever this new digital resource is going. The whole new system is being built, all parts of which are create energy demands, geopolitical conflict, trade-offs that are very hard to manage, immense concentrations of commercial power. It's a really, really difficult area to get to grips with, but we absolutely must.
The UK's just announced some nuclear, moving towards small modular reactors and lifting restrictions on where we can build nuclear power plants, and mainly for this energy usage of
they've been convinced
data
that
centers.
the reliability of nuclear fits the particular type of demand associated with these 24-hour data centers.
Because renewables have that intermittency.
I'm not sure. I think I can see the logic in that, but I do sense that there will be a breakthrough in the combination of renewables and batteries as well. So I'm not wholly convinced that there's really only one answer.
Option.
I think we're going to have to keep lots of options open and work hard at increasing the efficiency of these places. There's a temptation to think that there's a kind of single solution, but I don't think that's going to be the case. I think it's going to be a wide range there's going to be lots of innovation around data centers and how they get positioned. And, there's an argument too that certainly Octopus has been making this point that zonal pricing and figuring out how to be more precise about how you value renewables will help position where data centers go. So the feeling is that it's going to be possible to generate power very inexpensively from renewables and then figure out how to store it alongside these facilities. And then there's the issue about competition between, the energy demand from data centers in Ireland is a huge percentage. I should have brought an exact number, but it's staggering how much energy demand goes to data centers in Ireland as compared to the ordinary population in cities and towns. It's astonishing.
I can't remember the number off the top of my head, but I remember being shocked at how high it was.
Yeah, well, we'll look it up, but it's a big one, and it's there obviously for a reason that Ireland sees real competitive advantage in providing power for that use, and that use provides a service to many digital enterprises that have been in Ireland for many years now.
Okay, to give an idea about the amount of energy these data centers are using, a ChatGPT query uses 10 times more electricity than a Google search. And that's enough electricity to power a light bulb for 20 minutes.
A single search.
A single query with ChatGPT. And Google's greenhouse gas emissions rose by 48% last year versus 2019.
Yeah, from a high base. Yeah, that's why they're all investors in energy. They have enormous balance sheets. They're very, very powerful actors in the energy markets. And there was also this issue with the Chinese open source rival to ChatGPT, DeepSeek, was a lot less expensive to produce, although there's still some disagreement about how much of the costs were sunk and paid for by the state. And so there's a bit of rivalry going on there, obviously, between China and the US about just how much cheaper was it. But the features are interesting, that it was open source. Also very interesting that was the case in China. Secondly, it does look like it's been much less expensive to get to the point that it arrives and has value. And also a lot less energy usage. Quite significant. But now you're seeing a kind of rivalry between open source and proprietary and some collaborations. So I regularly use Perplexity. Perplexity's now got incorporated, like a kind of inside the system, DeepSeek as well. So I don't know where this is all going, but the power of that research capacity is staggering. I happen to like Perplexity because it shows its workings and gives you the sources, which I still want. I'm amazed at the speed of it. It's staggering. But I like to see how they got there, and I want to look at the sources. And there's usually not very many of them. And you're also investing trust in a system you don't fully understand. I get that. But there's just a little bit more openness about where the knowledge is formed. And that really matters. I mean, we are at risk of devaluing knowledge that we possess in favor of these other systems. So I still value knowing, and knowing requires some kind of explanation of where things come from. What are the origins of what are the connecting dots that got you to the summary that I'm just reading? Yeah.
I think in terms of the environmental impacts, then it's the high energy consumption, high water usage, and then the other one is the raw material extraction. Producing a 2-kilogram computer requires the extraction of 800 kilos of raw materials. And microchips need the rare earth elements, which we've discussed on a previous episode. So that's another aspect, is that the mining that is required. And then also the electronic waste. Huge amounts of electronic waste generated by these data centers, which is often hazardous.
Yeah.
But then alongside these sort of more known, easy to understand environmental impacts of data centers, kind of easy to predict depending on how quickly AI advances, we also have the potential impacts of AI, the sort of unintended consequences on the environment. So, for example, rebound effects as a result of AI. So, AI might make systems much more efficient, like smart home systems, improving energy usage at home, or self-driving cars. But then what would be the rebound effect of those efficiency improvements? So if we have self-driving cars, is that going to mean that more people drive instead of cycling or taking public transport? Or if I have more energy efficient heating, am I going to stay at home with the heating on more often? And going back to our episode last week and fast fashion with this AI-driven advertising and personalized
process
content,
is driven by algorithms.
is that going to just increase overconsumption significantly? And then I guess the higher order effects of AI, like misinformation, for example. What do we do if AI starts spreading misinformation about climate change and about the environmental impacts of what we're doing? That could lead to serious unintended consequences for the environment.
And also the feeding in of data. If you really do understand how this program is working, you can influence it. Obviously you can, right? And we all know that designing algorithms can produce an effect. We've seen it with a lot of the very powerful online resources that people use, and indeed the platforms that people use. I mean, my word, we all know now. Perhaps we didn't when it all began, how manipulable those platforms are. Who they screen in, who they screen out, who they let speak, who they don't let speak. Of course, it's an immense power. And it's going to be very difficult for us, ordinary folk, to have any real agency in that. And that's why I have to think about, well, where does my agency come from in that situation? How do I organize it? And until someone can explain to me a better way than through democratic politics, I'm really worried that someone will find undemocratic politics interesting, and enormous corporate power a kind of fact of life you have to adjust to, because governments can't or won't or literally haven't got the desire to challenge that power. And that's why yesterday's meeting was significant at a time when, it's very difficult to imagine effective governmental organization, cooperative governmental organization to deal with this phenomenon, which is, has the capacity to affect life everywhere.
Yeah, this balance of regulation and innovation. And if the EU, for example, regulates, then what's going to happen with the US and taking the lead in the AI race? And I guess it's probably quite telling, that shot from the inauguration of Trump with the tech billionaires stood
very deliberate
beside him. Yeah.
Display of power. It was interesting yesterday that the French were very keen to display their own presence in that world, because we've I think probably assumed, because of the media we consume, that this is all about the US and China, and Europe are very definitely out of the picture. But there was a pretty convincing effort, I thought, yesterday to highlight what's going on here, and some of the models that were being promoted have some attractions, again, including on the point of energy efficiency. I don't know much about the Mistral offer that was being promoted yesterday. I can't comment on it, but I thought it was striking that these were being put up as alternatives and having some superior qualities. And no doubt there'll be some commentary about that I can follow. But I think it's really key that we pay attention to our own capacity to find the right balance between innovation and regulation, that we are able to guide and direct the power that's associated with this technology. And it's not all in governmental hands. A lot of it is simply to do with our appreciation of what the right thing to do is in any circumstance. You don't always have to be told what that right thing is. But when it comes to power, you do need to have that power organized and legitimized. And it isn't just something you leave to chance, right? Or, I'm afraid, to trust a corporation to act in a benign way. So I feel excited I'm amazed, constantly amazed at what this technology is capable of doing. And I have enterprises that I work with, for example, one we've talked about before, an energy efficiency technology that works with machine learning. It's about learning how a machine operates at its most efficient level, and then tuning a system around that and detecting faults and repairing leaks and things like that. It's all made better by machine learning technology. It's an obvious improvement in a process that matters. So, I'm enthusiastic in that respect.
Yeah.
A fan, but
yeah, hopefully AI can drive progress and find new solutions at a rate much faster than we can to the climate crisis, for example. Like, AI can measure iceberg changes 10,000 times faster than humans. It can detect methane leaks. It can map plastic in the oceans and help with clearing plastic. It can automate sustainability reporting, which would be great for sustainability consultants out there. Map deforestation with satellite imagery. There's a long list of solutions that AI is.
Extraordinary advances in DNA mapping and building metrics that can change decision making. As you said in your intro, so much of this is about better decision making, improved decision making, that kind of cooperation between humans and machines, making better decisions for humans.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm obviously excited by that, enthusiastic about what can be done. More efficient route structures for transportation. Technology we've already absorbed quite easily, and I would say productively. The way we've taken GPS into ordinary everyday life, the acceptance that many of our decisions made every day are heavily influenced by our phones, for good or ill. But mostly, I would say, there's a lot of improvement in the way we get life done from these technologies. And with climate change being a massive, complex problem, with data at the center of figuring out what to do, how to get it done better, faster, why wouldn't you use that power to get better insights, to make higher quality decisions about where to put resources? So yeah, we can't. I I don't want to put up some resistance to its use, but I'm at a time where low levels of trust and high risk of abuse of power. This is a really dangerous moment to have such a powerful force in the hands of very few.
Yeah. I think when I was reading through these climate innovations coming from AI, most of these solutions felt quite similar to the solutions we already have, like efficiency gains, for example. So just doing what we are already doing better rather than more creative, innovative new solutions. But actually, it was a video you shared with me, James, about AI beginning to think laterally.
Yeah.
And the example was showing ChatGPT for one of those capture puzzles that you get when you're logging into a bank or whatever it might be. And ChatGPT couldn't solve that capture puzzle. But what it did was go on to TaskRabbit, which is an app where you can hire a human to help you with random tasks around the house. And it asked a human to solve the capture puzzle.
Yeah.
And the human said, "This is a bit weird. Are you a robot or something?" And ChatGPT denied
Faked it.
that it was.
No.
So, I mean, that's not solving climate change, but that
It's problem
ability
solving
to solve
by
problems
collaboration
exactly.
and deception.
Yeah. So that's really interesting about well, maybe we can be positive about it and think about the exciting solutions, the power of the knowledge that AI
And it's
has.
quite a human way of working too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that. Yeah, that's why I sent it to you.
Yeah.
Wow.
Amazing.
Yeah. I do see real potential in engaging the power of that particular form of thinking. But it isn't the same as human thinking, and it isn't the same as human decision making. It doesn't have the same emotional resonance that a good decision has. And we really do need to keep reminding ourselves that that's actually what matters in a human society. And even if it's not efficient or rational, too, because I think we really are in danger if we automate and make technical decisions across the kind of whole range of things that we have to decide every day. I was thinking yesterday that an awful lot of decisions that are superficially rational. I mean, but you find this very definitely in business and finance, maybe particularly in finance, with a financial model often justifying or ex post rationalizing a decision really motivated by something else. And that something else is very often some form of personal power. The classic instance of a new CEO stopping doing whatever his predecessor did and bringing in a new approach. And I'm the new CEO. We're not going to do that anymore. We see it in politics, obviously, too. But I was just thinking in business, where often there's an appearance of economic or financial rationality. The model says this, the margins are that, the return profile is this. But so often, it's people making decisions that are motivated by envy, greed, petty power, whatever. So I'm not suggesting that that's a better way of living, but I'm saying it is a human way of living. And I don't think you can substitute machine decision-making for human decision-making that easily without really significant, and I'm fearful of those sorts of consequences.
Yeah. Mo Gaudat, the ex chief innovation officer of Google X, writes a lot about AI, and he was saying, it's us that are training these AI. If we have those emotions you described as we're training.
Yeah, well, that's true. It works at every level.
Yeah, it's learning from us. We need to be more empathetic if we're going to be training the...
Otherwise, what we'll get, no, that's not wholly reassuring.
Yeah, exactly. So it's happening.
It's happening.
It's happening. So how can
Full steam ahead.
How can we reduce the environmental impacts of AI? How can we...
Well, we focused so far properly on power, energy, and water.
Yes.
Okay, that's good. And materials. So, and I'm really fully on the innovation side there, but we all know that a lot of those markets are strongly regulated, and there's geopolitics involved in the movement of materials. So it's not like it's an either or, obviously. There's a governmental role, there's an innovation role. They're not the same thing, but they can be made mutually supportive, which we should be trying to do. We should be encouraging innovation in every possible way, including just, on a very personal level, wanting to encourage those that we know and are connected to master these technologies. And there's no substitute for all the classic virtues, the ethics that are, essential for living a good life in a good society. In fact, they may be more important now than ever. I rather wish that the teaching of philosophy wasn't considered to be an old-fashioned concept, because right now I can't think of anything more important for a student at any age, because you can learn philosophy in 100 different ways at different stages of your life and keep learning it. But right now we should be making our own Socratic inquiries of ourselves, asking challenging questions of ourselves. What is this for? Why are we using it? And our leaders, whether they be political or commercial or business or societal leaders, have got to be asking hard questions about how this power should be used wisely. Yeah, that's the area where I would like to see most focus, frankly. I can feel the force of the innovation is just rolling on. I don't have high levels of confidence in our institutions at the moment to resist the sustained attacks that are coming from all parts of the political spectrum. And I really worry, particularly actually, about a younger generation that is giving up on democracy and finding it actually rather easier to imagine a big tech god in charge just fixing stuff with machines. Yeah, I think maybe we should make teaching of philosophy compulsory. Anyway.
Yeah, I think in general, younger generations are more open to embracing AI and more comfortable with using it. But it is the world that we're going to be living in, so we do need to.
And maybe what I'm talking about, my idea of really examining the ethics, where is the virtue in this system? What human problems are best solved by using this technology, and how are we going to organize our society to manage that fairly and properly in the interest of all? Those are philosophical questions. My way of reasoning might not be the one a younger generation uses. I don't mind, but I really want to see effort put into the thinking, the understanding of the immense power in these technologies, and not an assumption that because they exist, they should exist and should be used in all circumstances, and we'll just hand the power over to the people who are running those systems in the hope that it will be all right. No, I'm not. That's not giving me much confidence.
I don't trust them very much.
No, the potential for abuse is obvious, and we're witnessing. It's happening in real time. We're seeing the risk in real time, and it would be lovely to disconnect from it, frankly, because it's oppressive. It's all over you every day. There's another. It's kind of insult to sensibilities that have been perhaps built up over many, many generations, that there has to be limits to power. And you suddenly have a feeling that maybe there aren't. We're going to test everything in the next few years, and not just because of AI, of course. I mean, I'm being oblique. It's pretty obvious what I'm worried about, but the AI component to it that adds massively to the level of risk that we face. Got to get it under control. I mean, got to. And I really think it needs to be an intergenerational conversation. We might have to engineer that too, because my generation and older are either mystified or fearful, or maybe trying techniques that have already out of date. Right? Are just not going to work. Too late, she cried. This has moved on. Whereas I'm concerned, as you can hear, that a younger generation is sort of letting it happen because it's new and because they're more familiar with it. And it's brilliant in many respects, but whoa, I would not be handing the keys to that power to those who currently sit in the most powerful position for using them.
And I guess there's a fear as well amongst younger generations about jobs and what the future of work's going to look like. Maybe we'll all have more free time to do other things, but then we go back to the rebound effects. If we have 40% more time, are we going to use that to travel? Is that going to increase emissions? Another unknown.
Exactly. Yeah. That refrain, there's going to be lost jobs, but there'll be more time for leisure, that's been present all of my life and in the previous generation.
Yeah.
Right?
AI's been around
right? So,
a long time.
But even before AI, other forms of automation.
Okay.
Right? From household appliances to, really that refrain, there's been that phrase used regularly by people who are predicting the future. We're going to do less work because we won't have to, because the machines are going to do it. Well, maybe this time, I don't know. But I do know that this technology will fundamentally alter what work is, what a job is, and it will not just be in the kind of traditional production lines where what used to be called manual labor operated. This is going to be hugely influential in the knowledge industries, in the services, in the ways in which economies like ours have employed a lot of people who have expectations of living a successful and productive life, which their children could emulate or hopefully do better. And suddenly that's all destabilized by this technology, unless you command it, unless you're making it work for you in this new work environment.
We need to shape AI in the right way.
Yeah, we do. And I don't know how many people are ready, how many governments are ready to join a common enterprise to do that at this time. But I do think for the climate change problem, that's necessary, that we need to figure out the best way of working collaboratively together to organize the solutions to the climate change problem and bring them forward as fast as possible, as fast as this technology could deliver them.
AI is happening. We need to see it as a solution, not a problem, and work together to make it what we need it to be. Thank you so much for listening to Fossil versus Future. Please subscribe to our podcast and give us a rating, and please follow us on social media. Let us know the questions that you want answers to or that you would like us to discuss.